Ladies and gentlemen who have always found some time to watch and to listen to me, I want to thank you very much once again for coming today to listen to me. Please keep watching, because the information I'm going to be sharing with you on this platform is the type of information that you may not easily find anywhere else, because the issues that I talk about are not issues that are so commonly talked about. On this platform, like I've indeed explained to you before, we are proceeding with the examination of why is it that the workers in Uganda are working under very poor working terms and conditions of service. And we are not only going to talk about the workers of Uganda, we are going to talk about a series of other things that affect the working terms and conditions of service, or that affect the people generally. Things like environment. We are going to talk about the environment very broadly. We are going to talk about issues to do with the consumer protection. There are so many things that workers are consuming in Uganda, that the Ugandans are consuming, that are not what they're consuming, and as a result of which, people are getting complications in their health. We are going to talk about these issues. We are going to talk about leadership. And indeed, all throughout this exercise, even as I talk about workers' working terms and conditions of service, we are also addressing issues to do with leadership. These, among many other things, are things that I think, if properly addressed, we shall have Ugandans live better lives. Because the working people who are involved in production would have been given what they deserve, so that they can be able to help other people that come within the communities from where they originate. Over the past period, I have spoken about the systems through which justice is delivered to the working people. I have said always, every time from the days of old, there have existed leaders, and the leaders that have existed have tended to pay a lot of attention about concerning the positions they hold. They have not paid a lot of attention in regard to the welfare of the people. And even when they seem to pay attention to the welfare of the people, they seem to be doing so by offering just lip service. They speak very well, sometimes they speak very passionately, but when it comes to putting in place a mechanism through which people can enjoy the services that they have promised, those mechanisms do not exist. Or when they put them there, they again fail those very mechanisms to ensure that people don't get what they deserve. And the workers of Uganda have worked under very poor working terms and conditions of service, as a result of which we have seen many people even retire from employment, and they are unable even to take care of themselves in old age. They are unable even to take care of their families even when they are working. So one wonders, why then should we be able to have employment that is not good enough to help someone meet even the very basics? Okay, you may not give me everything that I need to live a luxurious life, because some of those things are bound to come by the way individuals are going to conduct and function independently. But you see, even when I'm rendering a service for you, I should be able to get the basics. Basics that will enable me meet the basic needs of life, that will enable me plan better to continue with what I need to do in my life. And I'm trying to show you, I've tried to explain over the past what is hindering realization of enjoyment of these rights. I spoke about the public service. I've spoken about the conduct of trade unions. Today, I would like to speak about, not generally, I want to speak about the National Organization of Trade Unions. National Organization of Trade Unions is an umbrella body established by the Labor Unions Act, specifically to do a number of activities. These activities include putting in place mechanisms or policies to ensure proper management of trade unions in Uganda. Trade unions are very important because they are at the forefront of advocating for the rights of the working people. But for them to ensure that those rights are enjoyed, trade unions themselves must be properly managed. And the NOTU is an organization that has been established by law, by the Labor Unions Act, to ensure that it helps the trade unions to manage its affairs properly. Because if they cannot manage their affairs very well, then it is going to be very difficult for the trade unions or for NOTU to realize the rights of the working people in Uganda. But unfortunately, this has not been the case. Management is one of them. Issues to do with workers' education is the other. Issues to do with coordination, proper coordination of trade union activities in the country is another function that has been given to NOTU. Issues to do with the offering, generating knowledge and functioning as a consultant on any labor matter in Uganda, that's supposed to be a function of NOTU. And unfortunately, this has not been done, as a result of which a lot of decisions have been made, and which decisions have not been able to benefit the workers of Uganda. NOTU is also supposed to function as a link between the trade unions, the government of Uganda, and the international community. Now, this link has not been sufficient. Trade unions have not been adequately linked with government. They have not been adequately linked with the international community. Still, yes, there is some linkage that we do realize. We do recognize some linkage which exists. But this linkage has not been sufficient as to enable, because linkage is not just for the sake of it. Linkage is for purposes of ensuring that trade unions are supported to function much more better than they are functioning today. The National Organization of Trade Unions is at a stage when it is organizing what they call a quinquennial delegates conference, a congress which is normally held after every 5 years. And in this congress, the major activity that is done during this congress, among others, is the election of new leaders. We are going to a stage where we are now going to elect new leaders that are supposed, or we are going to elect or re-elect the leaders so that we can be able to have a leadership that will assist the proper management of the trade unions and, of course, workers' affairs in the country. But why I'm speaking about this exercise is that over the past period, we have had a major problem. And the major problem that we have had in the election of the leaders in NOTU is the negative influence of the workers' members of parliament. Workers' members of parliament have got a fundamental role they play. But for them to acquire those positions, they need support from the affiliates. So sometimes for them to acquire that support, they struggle very much to ensure that people who hold positions of leadership in the trade unions are people who are aligned to their way of doing things. So they struggle very much to ensure that whoever comes in office is a kind of a person who is going to be used to help them succeed in the next election. As a result of which, there has always been a lot of negative influence on the center, that the center can no longer function independently because the members of parliament are interfering with the way the center must function. Now that we are moving to a period of election, why I'm speaking about this matter is that there is realized a practice that some members of parliament are trying to align, select individuals whom they can be able to position in the different offices, and that those leaders whom they are bringing will assist them in advancing their selfish goal of wanting to remain in parliament. It is not bad for you to desire to remain in parliament. My major area of concern on this aspect is that you need not interfere with the process of selection of leaders for the National Organization of Trade Unions, or selection of leaders for the individual trade unions, or selection of leaders for the Central Organization of Trade Unions. Let the individuals that are charged with that responsibility function independently minus your intervention. The reason why you should never intervene is that every time you promote individuals to ascend to office, those individuals come into office knowing very well that have come into this office specifically under the influence of Member of Parliament A, B, C, or D. This therefore means that whatever that Member of Parliament tells me, that shall I do. That is wrong. That is very wrong. Because the interests of members of parliament are not necessarily aligned to the interests of the National Organization of Trade Unions. We have seen members of parliament function even contrary to the interests of NOTU, which is the umbrella body supposed to manage the affairs of the workers of Uganda. A member of parliament, driven by a personal desire, driven by a selfish interest, works against the interests of the National Organization of Trade Unions. So if we have leaders who are simply going to follow members of parliament, such leaders are a bigger hindrance to the realization of the interests of the working people in Uganda. We therefore want to think that it is not right for a member of parliament to try and select, because even if you do, successfully do, and you have got people who have come in office, they have come in office under your influence, and they have now come into office, they are faced with a challenge where they must make a decision, and they are making decisions aligned to your interest instead of aligning such decisions to the interests of the working people. There will be a conflict. So you wouldn't have helped the center, because that will not happen in circumstances where some of us exist. We will not allow it. We will resist it. In the process of resisting, a conflict will emerge. And when a conflict emerges, we will spend a lot of time resolving conflict instead of addressing the interests of the workers. So it is therefore very important that the workers or the trade unions and their workers who are functioning independently take responsibility of selecting their own leaders. Let it not appear like as if trade unions have selected, when in actual sense, it is the members of parliament who are going to source for those leaders and try to encourage them to come and contest as though they are contesting, but then there are separate undertakings that are working towards ensuring that those people succeed, and they appear like as if they are being elected when actually they are people who are being promoted by the individual members of parliament. This method of work, colleagues who are members of parliament, I want to advise you, participate in such activities on invitation when you are being invited by the leadership of NOTU, so that whatever interest you pursue is an interest which is for common good, not your personal interest, because your personal interest is not always the interest of NOTU. Your personal interests are in many cases not the interests of NOTU. And therefore, I would want to call upon even those who are being persuaded to come and contest, even when you have never thought of contesting. Someone just comes and tells you, please come and contest. You should even assess yourself. Because like now, when you come to the board of NOTU is a board which is going to be able to offer consultants. You should be able to deliberate on business in such a way that you are offering guidance. Now, if you come and you know very well that you don't appreciate affairs in the management of trade unions at the level of NOTU, you are coming to be taught. And even when you are being taught, you are not ready to take the knowledge given to you because someone else has got to, you must satisfy somebody's interest. Then you are not going to be useful. You are going to be a liability. Don't come to office because someone has brought you there. Come to office because you believe yourself that there is something you must contribute to bring about positive change in the well-being of the workers of Uganda. I therefore want to suggest that even as you go through this exercise, let us manage this exercise in a way that will help bring growth and the proper management of the trade unions to the extent that they will deliver services to the workers. Remember, we are talking about workers. Workers who are really in a very bad state. Workers who are really so disadvantaged. People who are sleeping hungry. People who cannot pay school fees for their children. People who are injured and they cannot be compensated, employers have chased them away. People who are earning very small salaries, we are not dealing with this in the joking matter. So please, if you are not in position to rise up to the challenge, don't come to leadership. Don't come to leadership. You are going to get a problem with some of us for nothing. Don't desire to come to leadership when you know very well that you cannot manage the task before us. Come to leadership when you are 100% sure you are going to perform. Come into leadership because for you to speak, by the time when you want to speak, you have to look at someone's face to see whether he is nodding or not. Then you speak. That kind of leadership, we don't want it. We want leaders who are independent, who are going to stand on their toes and say, please, no. This is what we must do for the workers of Uganda. We have lacked this for a very long time. I've looked at the previous executive. You know what happened during that time? That brought a lot of conflict. And this should not be carried forward to another stage where we now see members of parliament continue to interfere with the election process. I want to, at this stage, stop here and maybe continue over the next video that I will be able to record, still in line with what I'm speaking. Thank you very much, colleagues, for listening to me. Hallelujah.